G'day YouTubers, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to replace the intake boot between the carburetor and the cylinder on the Husqvarna 365 chainsaw. To start with, I'm going to remove this cover here just by removing the two clips over here. Now you'll need a good Phillips screwdriver to remove the three screws that hold this cover. There's one screw here, one there, and one over here. Now you can take the cover off. Now take the air filter off just by lifting up the clip here. Take the rubber cover here that guards the screws. Now it's time to unhook the throttle cable. Pull the throttle mechanism back and pull out the throttle cable out with pliers, and that's all there is to it. I'm going to remove the fuel line and the impulse line. I'm going to use a screwdriver, but try to use a screwdriver as dull as possible so you don't damage the fuel lines. So just push it out and push out the impulse line the same way here. Now I'm going to remove the choke lever here, and to do that you're going to need a pair of needle nose pliers to go and squeeze the tip over here. You'll have to squeeze the tip here and then push out like that. Now you can remove the choke lever completely just by going like this. Now you're going to need a small Allen wrench like this to remove the two bolts that hold the carburetor. So the two Allen bolts are over here, and there's one over here. Grab a good pair of needle nose pliers that are thin like that, reach into the hole here and grab the bolt. Now just take the carburetor out. Now take off the little metal ring inside the intake boot. Remove the throttle cable. So just squeeze the rubber inside, use a dull screwdriver. At this point here, we have to remove the four Allen bolts over here that hold this cover. Then we're going to be able to reach in and remove the two Allen bolts over here that are holding the boot on. Now I've got the screws out, this cover will come off. The throttle cable is going to go through this hole and the fuel line over here. To remove the intake boot completely, you need to remove the Allen screw here, and there's one down here. Now with the flat screwdriver, just push the flange out. This little line here is the impulse line that feeds air to the carb from the crankcase. So it's going to slide out. So here's the old intake boot. If I take the flange right off, you can see that it was cracked in one of the corners. The part number for this boot is 5037439-01, and it's a Husqvarna OEM part. So with a cracked boot like that, it's going to be really hard to adjust the carburetor. It's going to run up and down, it's going to sound lean. If you do adjust the carburetor properly, it'll run maybe good for a little while, but then when you go to start it back and it's cold, it's not going to run right. So you're constantly adjusting the carburetor, it's not going to be responsive. So these are all signs that the intake boot can be cracked. So now it's time to reinstall the intake boot and follow along. What you need to do is to line up the flange here like this and insert it inside the boot. Squeeze it in there like that. Then you want to line up the flange with the holes here. Now you can insert the Allen bolts here so that it's easier to put it back on. So you want to make sure that the hole for the impulse line is on the right hand side of the saw. You see the line here, and then you want to line up the two screws with the holes over here. Insert the impulse line in the hole. Now make sure the two screws are nice and tight. So now the boot's nice and tight on there, and I've got the impulse line through there. Now I'm going to reinstall this cover here that goes over there. You got to insert the throttle cable in this hole here, and the fuel line in this hole here where my finger is. I'm going to insert the throttle cable in here. Next I'm going to insert the fuel line in the other hole over here. Now I've got to insert the cover back in its place, so tilt up the boot and stick it in underneath in the groove of the boot right here, as you can see. You want it to go in like the grommet part of the boot. Just like that. Lift the fuel line. Now put the 4 Allen screws back in. 2 at the front, 2 at the back. Now it's time to install this plastic piece here on the boot. Insert it into the boot like that. Squeeze it in there. This is how it should be. Insert the metal ring in there. It should be nice and tight in there. Now just insert the throttle cable back in. Just like that. Now we're going to reinstall the carburetor, and it's easier if you lock in the choke like that. Now insert the carburetor this way. Get your fuel line out in that. Fuel line goes over here, and the impulse line goes in the front connector here. Now we're going to reinstall the Allen screws that hold the carburetor, and they go in here, and you've got to line them up in the carburetor holes so that they end up lining up over here. You might have to move the carburetor so the holes line up. Now you're going to have to make sure these screws are fairly tight because there's a lot of vibration. So now we're going to reattach the throttle cable to that mechanism there. So all you need to do for that is bring the lever down like that, and then just insert the cable, and that's it. Now press on the trigger, and if it works like that, it's good. Now I'm going to reinstall the choke lever, so just insert it in the hole here. Now I'm just going to reinstall the screw cover. This little hole here goes in the notch over here. And it should be secure like that. Now before you put the air filter back on, just double check everything, that there's no leaks, that everything's tight. And to set the air filter back on, just insert it into the hole, push down, then push on the clip. So now I'm going to reinstall the top cover on the chainsaw. So now just tighten up the 3 Phillips screws. There's one here, one there, and one on this side over here. Now the last thing to install is this cover here. So now that I'm done installing the intake boot, I'm going to take it outside, start it up, and make sure it runs good. Once you've tried it out and you're sure it runs good like that, you know you've done it right. Thanks for watching, and hopefully this video has helped a lot of people out there. Take care now.